Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. We're back. We have lots to talk about today in the world of sports broadcasting involving the NHL. Eck will be joining us any minute. Start off with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So let's talk about Madison Bumgarner's 7-inning no-hit game, because that's what it was. It was interesting because I guess right after the game when they get him fresh on the TV network, he said something that was almost incoherent. I didn't quite get what it was. And then he said, I want to thank Rob Manfred for this 7-inning game. And then he took off the headset and dropped it. And the hosts acted like, oh, look, that's a mic drop. No. That was a frustrated athlete. And he did say, I did see a quote after the game that he said, hey, my stuff was so good, there's no reason to think it wasn't going to be good for 2 more innings. I have to tell you, whatever you think as a viewer or a fan, even if you like what Rob Manfred did, no player likes it. They thought this was supposed to be a 1-year thing for COVID last year. The fact that it got rolled over this year was against the wishes, I bet, of almost everybody, fans and players. Players want to have that complete no-hitter. Now, Bumgarner, if he never gets a no-hitter, he is going to look back on this game and say, what might have been.
Normally, I'm very pro-owner when it comes to CBA agreements in most sports. Not that I'm like anti-player, but the fact that I the owners are the ones footing all the bill, and the players are the talent, and they deserve to be compensated. But I'm in a way rooting for the players in the Major League Baseball CBA next off season, because they don't want things to change from the way it's been for 100 years or even more longer. Like this bull crap about moving the pitcher's mound back a foot, or the 10th inning, the extra inning a runner on second base, or the 7-inning doubleheader. All of it is crap.
I want to go with the DH thing one more minute too, because when Jacob deGrom pitched his 15 strikeout, 2-hit shutout, you should have heard that stadium, right? Everybody's like, oh, nobody likes pitching. Nobody wants to see pitchers hit. He drove in the first run, and he got another hit. So he's hitting like 580 on the season. Yesterday on the radio, I was listening to the Phillies and the Rockies, and it was a key moment in the game. The Phillies were up 2-1, and John Gray hit a base hit, drove in a run, and that was like his first RBI in 2 seasons, because last year with COVID, he didn't get up. And there was a big buzz in the ballpark. For those of you who, and again, even our own Dan Petru, who told me, well, the Mets should want the DH because Pete Alonso can't field. Pete's been fielding great, actually, and probably would much rather play first than DH. And I'm just saying, I know that some fans want it, but I'm also telling you, pitchers like to hit because they're athletes and they like to not just sit around. There are some that don't like to hit, but that's when they get older and they just don't care.
And the argument here is pitchers getting hurt on the base paths when normally, they're not used to being that everyday player who's going to be out.
Those are the guys that are out of shape, though, Mike. They made a joke about that on the Met games. DeGrom got his hit, right? And then he also scored. He went to third and second. He tagged up, and then he scored on a hit, right? He comes in, and they joked about it, and they said, oh, yeah, he'll probably be tired from running the bases, because they knew that's what somebody had said the day before, right? And I forget which pitcher it was. He went out and pitched 7 more shutout innings. So if you're in shape, you're in shape. It's garbage.
Just one thing briefly before we start, Eck. I normally watch the Academy Awards.
I'm glad I didn't.
Well, I peeked in and saw what a train wreck it was.
Yeah.
And tuned out completely. And the reason I tuned in just to see who was winning the awards, and they were doing it. It looked like in a dinner theater. It was basically this weird setup where they had a bunch of socially distanced tables, and it was
back at Grauman's Chinese Theater. That's how they used to do it.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, it wasn't even like that. They used to have like banquet tables. Then they would be in sort of like an auditorium. Here, like I said, it was sort of like a Vegas setup where they had a bunch of like booths, and they were passing microphones around.
Did they have an ice cream bar, like a bar mitzvah?
Did they have a carving station with a prime
carving station?
It's like, wait, hey. I'll have a slab of prime rib. Yeah, I'm sure some of the actresses who don't eat meat, would say, yeah, give me a slab of prime rib. But this is the thing that I drew from it. Anthony Hopkins won Best Actor for a movie called The Father, which I didn't. I had heard of it. I knew he was nominated. I haven't watched it. And for the first time, I think since Peter Finch died before he won for Network, the actor who won Best Actor didn't show up. He wasn't there. And
Really?
I didn't see who accepted for him. If it was like Olivia Colman, who was his co-star in the movie, but it's weird. Like, it was one thing if Marlon Brando sends up some Indian to accept.
He sent a Native American up for his.
Right.
There was a reason for that. Yeah.
Right. Or George C. Scott refused it for Patton because he had been rejected for Oscars before and said, I'm not going to do this. But, it was just weird because this is the second time he won the Oscar. He obviously won for Silence of the Lambs. He's been nominated a bunch of times. And, this is probably one of the few last times that he'd be nominated since he's in his mid to late 70s. And he wasn't.
Does he live in this country? He may not.
I don't know. I think he lives in England.
That could be a bugaboo right there because of his age and everything else.
Right. And I'm sure COVID. And the other one is Frances McDormand wins again Best Actress for a movie called Nomadland, which was the Best Picture. Now, again, this is a movie I haven't seen.
Nobody's seen these movies.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. Like, even if they're on Netflix, like the only one of the movies that was nominated that I've seen is The Trial of the Chicago 7, which was on Netflix. Which was
I lived it, so I didn't watch it.
Right, which was actually pretty good. Yeah, Hopkins is 83 according to Michael Cohen. Thank you, Michael. But Frances McDormand, now she's won for Fargo. She won for the Billboards, that one, and for this movie, she's now up there in like Bette Davis territory. Bette Davis won the Oscar 3 times. Katharine Hepburn won it 4 times. She's got as many Oscars as Meryl Streep.
So you have a problem with this?
No. I think she's a great actress. It's just weird that that she won again.
The only clip I saw was her howling, and I laughed at that. If I would have played it, my dogs would have howled with it.
Don't start. I'm sorry, we don't know what's gonna happen here. Never know.
Well, they can hear my voice, so of course
they can hear your voice, but we got a doggy door. This is a new thing we did. We got a doggy door on our screen door. I got the one dog to go through it.
Is it electrified?
No, it's not. It's not electrified. It's that, we didn't. There are ones you can get that are like that. My wife's like, you should have gotten the other one. It's like $400 more. The one that has the collar on it that will open when the door, the dog gets close to it, which I guess maybe
that's good because then this way a possum can't come through.
Yeah, I mean that's true. We never now when we come home we never know if there's another creature like a badger.
Right. Well, if they don't have a collar, they won't get in, so that's good.
So I guess you're on my wife's side. I guess I should have done it. I guess I should have splurged for the bigger doggy door, but just to get through the podcast, this is really the only time it really matters because usually we let them in and out, no problem. But I think our one dog, our younger dog, Corgi's going through it, no problem. Where the Shih Tzu is it's just a little intimidating for her. She's tiny, and I think she thinks it's us kind of because has a magnetic
streets on the other side. You might be able to.
Well, that's how we started. The funny story about how to get this started was our Corgi will not let the Shih Tzu eat at all. We have to feed the Shih Tzu in some other place. We have to feed her in the bathroom or put her someplace else. So what I did is I threw the Corgi outside and in front of the screen door, and I just fed the Shih Tzu on the other side of the door, with just the flap there. The only way she could get in through the door, and she was going nuts, she was losing her mind. Meanwhile the Shih Tzu is just loving it. Grinning and saying, "I'm eating, and you can see me eating." And she
got a Cain and Abel situation.
I was gonna say it's like the Patan death march of the Shih Tzu.
So she's putting the doggy door is comes up this high or so, and then so the Shih Tzu is above it, in the glass part of it, because it's a big screen door, doggy door. So it's above it on the glass part, looking at it, and she slips off the glass part, which pushes her accidentally through the door. It's really funny. So that's how she figured out how to open it, even though I pushed it back and forth. So now she'll go through it at will, but the Shih Tzu still doesn't. So now we have to have the doors. I got to figure out. So I guess I got to get the collars for the Shih Tzu to go through it.
Holy
shit. That's what I would do.
Okay.
That's a problem. All right, let's get started here. Let's see what date is it today. It's the 29th. 26th. It's the 26th.
Yeah, you were close.
I looked at my calendar actually and just did my dyslexia's best there. 26th.
Right month.
Yes. Hi. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday. I forgot to do this. Let me take a drink real quick.
What a train wreck.
I know. Sorry. All right. It's Monday. It's Monday, guys. Come on. Huge pickleball game yesterday. Epic game. I'm still exhausted from. All right. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, April 26th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and it's over.
Well, I'm Russ Cohen, and I bet you the National Pickleball TV deal is better than the NHL TV deal.
We can get to that. We'll get to that in a second. I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com, where it's never over till it's over. And we fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And if we've learned nothing from this sport, is that miracles can happen. Let's start before we get into the fact that we had that the Rangers are now 4 points closer than they were when we last talked. Let's go through this, and let's start with the NBC. What we're talking. Mike, go ahead. You can start.
Okay. The report came out a couple hours ago that NBC was essentially pulling out of the negotiations. This came from the Sports Business Journal, that they were pulling out of the negotiations for the second leg of the NHL's U.S. TV deal.
Right.
Now, this came on the heels of a report on Saturday from Chris Johnston of Sportsnet that Fox Sports was in the lead.
Oh boy!
Along with an aspect of Apple. As part of,
I would guess the stem. My guess would be.
Yeah, there you go. As part of the second leg, but now it's coming out from John Orand of Sports Business Journal that it's actually Turner that is going to be the second part of this agreement. Now, I haven't seen any specific amounts here, but Steve Simmons from the Toronto Sun reported that the total package of both would be around $600 million per year for the NHL. And if you add that to what they get from Sportsnet, it's probably close to. And I don't remember.
How many years do we think it is? 5 years, 10 years?
I think the ESPN deal was 7 years.
7, okay.
So I would assume that this package would be the same amount of time, unless they want to stagger it. But this is the thing that I'm concerned about. And Russ has reservations, and so do I.
Okay, go ahead.
The one thing that I was encouraged about, if they were going to go away from NBC, which it may have been sort of cooked in the books because NBC was dissolving NBCSN. So that was eliminating the sort of day-by-day coverage.
Right.
They weren't going to put it on USA Network because God knows they have to run replays of Monk and the wrestling shows over and over. So they weren't going to put games on there, and they weren't going to put them on the NBC network all the time. So there really wasn't a viable avenue unless it was going on Peacock, and I don't think the NHL wanted to go that direction. So when I heard Fox Sports, I'm like, okay, that makes sense because they could be on Fox Sports 1 during like regular season games, and for their showcase games, they would be on the Fox network. But now it
actually makes more sense, Jake, because the one thing, and I'll let you finish, but the one thing that when you search through the country to see where games are covered on, there are actually more teams that are covered by Fox affiliates than NBC affiliates.
Right, but that now, if this report is correct, and everybody seems to be saying it's Turner, you've now lost the ability to put the Stanley Cup final on a major network. Now, with ESPN and ESPN Plus, you're going to have Stanley Cup final games on ABC, probably,
right.
And for 4 of the 7 years. But Elliot Friedman reported it's going to be 4 years on ESPN and 3 years on Turner. Well, yes.
I did a little research into this in the brief period of time that we've had because, that's why I was a little bit late. I was talking to somebody about this, and yes, that's how it was set up originally when they were negotiating with NBC. Was there'd be 3 years on NBC and 4 years with ESPN. But I think that it's not very hard for the NHL to go back to ESPN and say we're going to give you 7 years of the Stanley Cup final because of this situation. I think that that makes sense. And before, I wouldn't be shocked if we don't just see.
Okay, so maybe they do that. So
the Stanley Cup final go to NHL.
Right. Here's my issue. My issue is there had to be dual negotiations with the NHL and NBC and Fox, right?
Right.
Now, you were sitting at Fox, and you just saw NBC pull out. There's no way you're giving them that original offer.
No.
you're going to give them less.
Now, well, that's why TBS and then Turner.
And this is why TNT is now in it, because they're probably paying much less than they thought they would. And here's my other thing. Hold on, Mike.
Yep.
My other thing is, so I looked it up. NASCAR has a better TV deal with NBC and Fox than the NHL will, Eck. And I never thought I would see the day that would happen, but it's happening.
I think that's been the way it's been most of the time, hasn't it been? I mean, like,
not most of the time.
Until like the last deal with Comcast.
This 2013 is when this NASCAR deal came in, and then they threw an extra 1.4 billion into it to make it go through 2024. So until probably 2013, 14, something like that, it probably wasn't the case.
And the 10-year deal with NBC was $200 million a year times 10 years. So they were locked into a $2 billion deal for 10 years and $200 million. NASCAR was probably making more than that back then. I mean, there are a lot more.
You know what they're making here compared to that, though, Mike. I mean, this is ever going to make it doesn't. I mean, already with ESPN, you said they're at $600 million, right?
Yeah, they've okay. Let's say this.
They've already tripled.
They've tripled their money. If it's $600 million, like Steve Simmons said, they've tripled their money from what they had from 10 years ago. But if you look at baseball, if you look at football, they're going 10 times what they made 10 years ago. Now, I think this is a reflection, of course, that the NHL is not the NBA, is not the NFL. It's not Major League Baseball with its regional draw. It's not NASCAR because, south of the Mason-Dixon, that's like the church. That's how religious they are regarding NASCAR. So, I mean, this is an example of a regional sport, which I have no problem with.
So how about this, though? I just did a little research.
Okay.
And last July, when the NBA restarted, they had a doubleheader on TNT, and they drew an average audience of 2.9 million. That's not a ton. And that's the NBA. What is the NHL going to get on TNT when people actually find it on there?
And this is my
thing, though, guys. You got to remember this. This is a gift. I mean, to be honest, think of where we're going to be in 7 years from now with streaming and what's happening right now. I mean, if you can make a deal
4 or 5 years ago, we're doing a little better, but we're not doing a lot better, Eck.
No, I mean, if you compare 4 or 5 years ago, where you watch games between now, even 4 to 5 years ago, you've already shifted most of a majority of how many people are actually flipping through cable and watching it compared to how many people are either watching it on Game Center or getting it another way, or watching it on Hulu or watching it here. I mean, there's so many ways to watch it.
I want you to go back on a portal and talk to 4 or 5 years ago, Eck, where you had different glasses and a better hat. I want you to talk to that guy.
I always have a better hat. This looks absolutely ridiculous. Can someone bring me a better hat?
Yes, you know. Here's
anyone in the house can grab me a better hat would be good.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, give me a better hat if you could. I need a hat. Thanks. Yes, please. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks.
But
my lovely wife is bringing me a hat.
Here's because we had John Shannon on Off the Post yesterday.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about the potential of Fox Sports.
Thank you very much.
Having the other three Stanley Cups. So that's much better.
That's better. No, it's better.
It's better.
Sorry, your point is
now he looks like
another hat. Okay, thanks. Found another hat. Okay, cool. Thanks. No, I can't wear a Flyers hat. That's not allowed. No. No, I can't wear this Owens hat.
No,
I can't wear a Flyers hat.
hat.
I'm not allowed to wear a team hat.
Much better.
There we go. Thank you, though.
When we had John Shannon on the show, and he was saying the most important thing, and because I made a crack about the NHL being on Sports Channel America, where half of America didn't have Sports Channel America, so what the hell good was it? He said the most important thing is that the Stanley Cup final be on a major network with as many eyeballs on it, and you don't get that.
Matt, Mike.
You don't get that with Turner.
Mike, you're going back to Sports Channel.
No,
USA. No, but John did. But okay, John did. Okay, John did. I'm sorry.
Well, he said it though, Eck.
No,
but there's 4 networks, 4 over air, and they still want to be over air first. That's what he said.
Yes.
Yes, they do. Okay, but the majority, and there's no question that but I mean, when Sports Channel deal was made, there was no such thing as the internet. There was no such thing as streaming. And everything is totally different. Like to me, where you are now, yes, they want to be over the. No, it's not. It's a good hat. I'm good with this. So everything over the everything over there. There was no streaming. She brought me. It was a giant sombrero, which I was going to know. But now, now you have streaming, and now, honestly, yes, you want to be over the air, but I mean, how many fans? Tell me, how many fans are really just like flipping through the channels with their old banana ears television, trying to find the NHL Stanley Cup Finals? It's just not happening. It's just not happening anymore compared to where it was. I think that
it's not about people on their black and white TV with their rabbit ears or the satellite dish that's being used as a friggin' bird bath. It's about eyeballs. I mean, the reason that they wanted to go back to ESPN is because 99% of the cable outlets out there have ESPN as a prime channel. Turner is close to that, but not as much. But
it's not a guarantee they're in every hotel and places like that.
There's one place that this matters. There's only one place that matters, and that's in bars. Okay, in bars, you want to have, like, if a bar doesn't have Turner, but every bar has ESPN. So every sports bar you go into, you'll be able to see the game. It's on ESPN or on ABC or whatever. That matters. But that's it. But
okay, here is my other concern, is the fact that the NHL has put themselves in a position to run second fiddle to the NBA for 7 years, because they're on the two networks. They're on ABC, ESPN, and they're on Turner. And that's what the NBA playoffs, and that will be on the next 7 years. Turner and ABC, ESPN. And if you don't think that ABC is going to be giving preferential treatment to LeBron James and Zion Williamson and the three-headed monster in Brooklyn over Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews, then you're lying to yourself, because they will.
All right,
of course they will, but that doesn't matter. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, you tell me anybody out there who is like saying, wow, the NBA and NHL are on today, I wonder which I'll watch.
Okay, but this is something, and this is getting back to what you said about bars. So just recently, this was, 2019, Turner Sports reached an agreement with Premium Sports to make the Champion League's games available to commercial establishments such as bars and restaurants. If they don't do an ancillary deal like that for the NHL, I think we know the answer. A lot of bars and establishments aren't going to be getting it.
Bars put on hockey when someone asks to put on hockey. That's the reality of it.
Only if they have it.
Everybody has a Roku box in a bar now. Everybody will be able to get it on Hulu. Everybody will be able to get it wherever. You don't think those bars already have? They're already set up for I
will give you a perfect example. I've gone to a local establishment a couple times. This is obviously before the pandemic, and was looking to watch a game that was on NHL Network.
Right.
And they say, we don't have it.
Right. They don't have it. And listen, and that matters to people like that. But at the end, and the few people who are actually, in hotels, which is always the funniest thing. You can't get in a hotel. I mean, it doesn't matter when you're in a hotel, but how often you're in a hotel.
Remember, Eck, we were in Minnesota at the draft at the League Hotel, and we couldn't get the NHL Network.
I know, and that was also before streaming. So
yes, it was.
I mean, now it's like that bar you go to, Mike, is like, if enough people are asking for the NHL game, and there's other ways of getting it on there. I mean, there's so many ways to get it. There are so many ways. Any kind of deal. If you increase by 3 times to $600 million for a television deal, and obviously the $600 million is just television and streaming is also a big part of that deal.
Maybe I'll have to go to different bars, because the bar that Russ and I went to in downtown Buffalo, I'll give him some free advertising, Swanee House. They had a bunch of Sony Trinitron TVs.
There you go.
So I mean, but I'm just saying is that your optics in terms of eyeballs, I think would have been more had it gone to a network like Fox Sports with a dual way of having games, regular season games on a cable network, and then having the Stanley Cup final on a over the air main network. And now they've essentially, unless they do what you said they do, but by giving ESPN and ABC all 7 years, which I don't think they're going to do. It sounds like Turner's going to get 3 of the 7. Then 3 of the 7 years, you're not going to have as many eyeballs on the Stanley Cup final.
They'll get 3 of the 7 if they hit a certain number, is what I was told. But if it's like, so basically there's a reserve on that. Like if you were doing an auction, we need like $400 million, or you're not going to get the Stanley Cup Finals basically, and then the Stanley Cup Finals will go back into and they'll go back to ESPN and they'll say, hey, ESPN is a bonus, thanks for doing this, whatever. That's how it'll play out, because they want it on they want it on ABC as well. Of course, there's no question that the Stanley Cup Finals you do want on as many possible networks as possible. But there is no way that 3 or 4 years from now, or even next year, or even now, people can't get these games. It's not. This is like it's complete. If you want to get these games, you can get these games. And we live in an era where it's not where no one is just flipping through channels. They're either watching something, they're binge watching something, they're streaming something, they're doing something. We live in a totally different dynamic than the dynamic you guys are talking about. Which is the dynamic you guys are talking about just doesn't. It's like what's on ABC tonight. It's just not happening. My kids don't know any idea what network any show is on, and really neither do I.
Now I'm going to guess right now. This deal is probably going to rank somewhere like 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th most lucrative for sports.
Yeah. Now, Andrew Marsh.
Not bad considering it's made now, because I think that when the NBA makes their next deal,
like selling for now, so we should just say, oh, that's not bad. All right, let's move on.
For considering all the options that people have to watch and the ratings of everything, yeah, it is. That's not. It's really good.
Couple additional things, then we can move on. Andrew Marchand is reporting. I believe he's New York Post, Russ.
Yes.
He's reporting that Turner has gone in all alone on this NHL package, on the verge of adding 3 Stanley Cups, according to sources. So a partner like CBS is not involved, I am told.
CBS doesn't want any part of it.
No, and also here's one note component of a potential NHL Turner deal: HBO Max getting into sports for the first time. Yeah. So okay, you're talking HBO Max, ESPN Plus, Hulu, Turner.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah,
and
welcome.
ESPN.
2021.
I like the
everywhere but ABC.
Right. Well, no, I think they did say that if with ESPN that they would have Stanley Cup final games on the network.
Some games. They're not going to have the whole Stanley Cup on it. You know that, and I know that.
Yeah.
I think this is a whole lot for a whole lot. I mean, listen. Obviously, they want to get the best deal possible. Obviously all the deals are going to go down when the NFL negotiates their next deal. It's going to go down. I think it's the
NFL won't go down.
Well,
it's not going to go up by 10 times. It's to go up by 3 times. To go up by 3 times they would love it. I mean, we live in a different society now.
The NFL has already negotiated. They already closed their deal. Starting, I think, in 2023 is something like. It's like $11 billion contract. It's ridiculous.
But a lot of that is also is like this deal is. A lot of that is also based on streaming. It's not. It's really the streaming rights are huge. That's another thing that you're looking at here. Like that's the frustrating thing about the people who buy the center ice package and stuff like that. When you get there and it says, what was that?
That's over with now.
Well, no, I think that is going to be over with in general. Because already it's just incredibly frustrating to watch it. And I think because, I'm
just going to say this.
Yeah.
Let's say the NHL is getting 20% more money by not being with NBC. The problem is there was a lot of cachet with NBC. John Shannon felt that. I felt that. I think Mike felt that. Because when you could say, hey, your sport is on NBC, even if it's on NBCSN part of the time, they did do a great job. And there is a certain cachet to saying that. When now you're saying we're on these 20 streaming services, there's less cachet.
There is for now, but and there's less cachet for old school people. I'm not calling out John Shannon as being old. Don't worry about John. I'm not calling you out for that. But old school, and I agree. Listen, they love to be on NBC, but their NHL also. Remember when they went to NBC, they turned down an offer from ESPN that everybody said they should have turned down. But they for just a little bit more. We all said the same exact thing. There's more cachet to be on ESPN than there is to be on NBC. At that point, the NHL does stuff because they do not want to look like chumps. And they try to keep the perception that they're more important than the networks they're on. And we know that
HBO Max. You know what the Max part is about HBO Max?
The price.
It's Cinemax. Do you know what Cinemax shows?
Porn.
Do you know why HBO Max does well? Because they have the rights to Friends, which has nothing to do with HBO or anything else. Sure. HBO Max has, the reality is the streaming stuff for things like Friends and The Office are just.
Don't you think this might cause problems, family problems, when there are other things that you could get on HBO Max besides the NHL? Even if your kid's looking for the NHL, how do you're now going to have to make sure you're blocking the other things?
Yeah. There's some of that on there for sure, and you can put child things on there, but you have to do that now with cable. So I don't think that's a huge difference.
Hey, Mom, can we watch this Shannon Tweed filmography, please?
Oh man, I mean, it also gives the NHL the chance to like put out games, with language and all different kinds of fun things that they want to do. Like the NHL likes to do that kind of like hardcore stuff, where you hear the players speaking their way they normally speak. Okay. I mean, there's other options here. I mean, there are going to be so many ways of streaming this. The NHL ideally would like the whole thing to be just Game Center and that's it, and people would just pay for the games. That would be fantastic. But
now Game Center is Hulu, Eck.
I know Game Center is connected to Hulu now, which is great. I think because Hulu's streaming is great, and I watch most. Actually, that's where I watch most of my stuff is on Hulu. Because their streaming quality is just really good. So I mean, that it comes down to quality and streaming and stuff like that. So
one thing, and we don't know about this, but one thing that Russ and I discussed before the show that I'm concerned about as somebody now. Okay, I had the Center Ice package for years, and because I was through a cable provider, they had a limited number of channels. I think 15 channels assigned to the Center Ice package, and that meant that they had to make a choice on the nights where like there were 13 or 14 games,
right?
Of what broadcast to, if it was Buffalo versus Boston, you were either getting Jack Edwards or you were getting Rick Jeanneret. You weren't getting both. On Game Center Live and on DirecTV's broadcast of the NHL, you get the option of listening to the home or away broadcast. So I wonder whether Hulu, like MLB, will allow for the option of listening to one or the other broadcast, or if they're going to limit it. If they limit it, you're going to have half the listeners pissed off because they're not going to be able to listen to their home broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, what I suggest to those listeners, listen to the away broadcast. They're a lot more fun sometimes. Like,
what a cop!
No, they are. I mean, and also we grew up in a world where you couldn't see anything. So I'm thrilled to have like some kind of. It is funny that we sit and talk about like we want to have the away broadcast.
I was aggravated when the Mets were playing Colorado, and I'm clicking on MLB.TV, and I was only getting the Colorado broadcast for whatever reason. That had never happened before, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to be stuck with these guys.
If I'm paying $150 for the year package, I want to listen to the broadcast I want to listen to.
No, and I agree, and I don't think I don't think Hulu's going to have a problem with that because I mean that this is not like cable in terms of the amount of bandwidth you can put over something. It's like where cable they have is the limited thing. There's really no reason for Hulu to limit that. There's really no reason for Hulu to do that. The streaming is a totally different ball of wax. There's plenty there's plenty of space there. I mean, we're talking about I mean, to me, like just funny. The other day, in one of the Flyers Bruins debacles, I was watching the game, and I was I usually watched with the Flyers broadcast because I'm used to like Jim Jackson, Keith Jones, I love these guys, whatever. So then at the end of the, but for some reason that broadcast was like wonky, like on my, it was synced wrong, it was synced way too, like the voice was happening way before the play or something like that was happening. So I went over to the Boston Bruins broadcast and watched them. And I thought those announcers were fantastic. Like I was watching the game, like these guys are really, really good. I mean,
if I had to listen to Jack Edwards all the time, I wouldn't do it.
All the time I agree. But like once in a while, he's pretty fantastic. And then and whoever does color for them,
call. He does a great call.
He does a great call. The guy for them really do.
But they didn't call this penalty or they killed my guy stuff just kills me. And I like.
Well, yeah, there's no way. I mean, the fact that these guys work for the teams, is definitely real. How does this affect Canada? This deal, not at all, Randy.
Canada really has nothing to do with Canada. You could.
It really doesn't. Canada just has it on Sportsnet. And Sportsnet has the streaming stuff and everything like that, and it's all it's all fine. But I think I think it is. It's a calculated guess that gamble that the NHL is taking, but I think that they're smart and they've learned in their past that they go with more money and their fans will, for the most part, go with them. And I think, and then they also don't look like a chump for taking less money. Like they could have bowed down. ESPN thought they needed them so much that they just threw a really low ball offer, and then went to NBC. Everyone was like, "Oh, what a crazy!" I mean, you all remember this, right? I mean, this was a crazy, crazy thing that they would leave ESPN because we were all like ESPN, but NBC turned out to do a hell of a job.
Here's the thing, though. NBC is not going anywhere. You don't know what the future of Hulu and some of these other places are, and most likely they'll be okay, but you don't know. And we've seen weird things happen where snafus and all of a sudden the TV deals, especially with like cable companies, when they all of a sudden decide, hey, we don't want to carry this channel anymore. So like, what if that starts happening? Like all of a sudden some cable companies are like, hey, we can't come to an agreement with TNT on our local thing, so we're not going to do it anymore.
Now,
right.
Let me bring up.
It can't happen.
let me bring up one other thing that's not tied to the TV deal, but tied to the GM meetings that happened recently. Elliot Friedman reported this on Saturday, and I can't tell you how much I'm in favor of one plan as opposed to the other plan. The NHL came out with two scheduling plans for the upcoming season. One was it was an imbalanced schedule that allowed for 6 sort of special circumstance games. I mean, it was essentially, 4 games against your division opponents, 3 games against the teams in your conference, 2 games against the team in the other conference, and then 6 games that could be assigned especially, meaning like for Canadian teams against other Canadian teams. So it was sort of an imbalanced schedule. But with that one, you were locked into the same divisional playoffs, which are completely asinine and boring as hell. Mm-hmm. And the other structure was 2 games against the other conference, 3 games against the teams in your conference, except for the division, 5 games against most of the teams in your division, and conference playoffs. For the love of God, can we go back to the conference playoffs? Because the divisional playoffs are boring as friggin' hell.
The one problem, Mac, is, and I asked John about the schedule yesterday, and he said they have like 8 or 9 of them, but he doesn't even think the season will start until November again. And
it's all dependent on the Canadian-U.S. border. If the government gives NHL teams special dispensation to cross the border, which they haven't done for the NBA and they haven't done for Major League Baseball.
Right.
If they do that in September and October, then the NHL can have a regular 82-game schedule with the normal divisions. But if the border is still closed, I mean, this is the thing I'm scared about: an 82-game schedule with the Canadian division, with the Canadian teams playing each other 11 and 12 times. Oh my God, it's boring now. What do you think it's going to be like that?
I mean, I think it's boring. I mean, the ratings, I guess, are good, but it's hard to really judge. I mean, I think I really can't stand it. I'm at the point right now where I just can't watch. I'm trying to watch games out of conference and different things like that because I've just seen so many of the same teams all the time.
The ratings have slipped in Canada lately, because people are bored with it.
Yeah.
Have you watched the Penguins lately?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
They beat up on a lot of bad teams. I agree.
Oh! Like, what are the Rangers doing? They're beating up on bad teams too.
There are 2 bad teams, at least 2, 2.5 maybe.
I'm not saying a thing.
Yeah, the other half is the Flyers.
All right, so let's go to this for a second. 2 games in hand. The Bruins have 2 games in hand. 4 points up on the Rangers. I mean, this is like, at some point, you guys have to realize that they could lose those 2 games in hand. We're 4 points.
You don't realize it when they're dead even in games. Wake me up when that happens.
At what point is it possible? Like, you guys are like, oh, it's not possible. It's ridiculous. We saw 4 points. That 4 points we just saw close over the last weekend.
Oh. This is like
2, Rangers 1-2.
You and I are racing each other, right? And we're doing a marathon, and I've got a lead on you, and now you're trying to calculate how you can catch up because you've fallen behind or I've fallen behind, and it's nearly impossible once it gets to a certain point. This is nearly impossible.
This is not but they just got half as possible as they were before. They were 8 points back. Now they're 4 points back. That's the reality. That's just
and how many? Okay, so let's do it again.
2 games in hand.
Right. So let's say they win both. So then they're 8 points back. How does that look?
Let's say they win 1 because their next 2 games they play Pittsburgh.
6 points back. Does that all of a sudden look good to you?
It does when they have a couple games against each other still, which is like, and when you look at it, I mean, at some point in the near future, this is going to be in the Rangers' hands. Like, this is the whether they can get it or not. So you have to say that this is possible. It's like, that's crazy. I mean, at like some point, I mean, right now it's not, it's definitely not in the Rangers' hands still for sure. But the Bruins have to beat, the Bruins have a couple games against New Jersey coming up.
Remember, their last 2 games are against the Sabres.
Yeah, and the Sabres have
points they could just lap up at the end of the season.
Well, didn't they just lose to the Sabres? They did.
Yeah, they lost the game. Yeah.
They lost the Sabres on Friday, so they've got those 2 games. So maybe they win 2. I mean, the reality is,
Beauty, you couldn't do better than that, Mike.
Oh man, you guys are lucky I'm not looking at that chat room. Okay, so yeah, I'll tell you this. It's like, to me, It's there. I mean, it's close. It's not perfect at all, but it's close. I mean, you cannot. You at some point you're going to have to admit it. I don't know when that day is going to come, but you're going to admit that it's
when that day will come. When there's no games in hand and they're tied.
All right. So all that has to happen is the Bruins have to lose 2 games, and the Rangers have to beat the Bruins twice, and they're tied. That's it.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that is not. We're twice. The Bruins can lose 2 games. The Rangers can beat the Boston Bruins twice. That's it. They're tied. Now the
4 of these games, 4 of them are against the Sabres and the Devils are a bad team.
No, the Devils are horrible.
The Devils choked away that game to the Flyers yesterday. It was a nice comeback by the Flyers. Giroux had a great game, but in the end, they choked away that game too because they were clear in hand for most of that game.
Yeah. Well, so Flameshare wants to know the $1 million question about the Calgary Flames and the Montreal Canadiens, which they play again tonight. Now,
well, tonight's game is very important, no question.
It's been made important by the fact the Flames have just dominated the Canadiens here, and they lost one, but even they lost one of the recent games. I mean, and it's interesting how this plays out. Really, I did a whole thing yesterday. I would challenge anybody to understand what I wrote. It was so horrible, but if you go through it, it's just so horribly mathematical. Mathematically, I'm just like but if you follow it, it's great. To me, the schedule is like, okay, there you have it. But I went through this and, the difference between the Vancouver Canucks and the Calgary Flames and how they're going to catch the Montreal Canadiens and, how each team can do it. I went through it in great detail. The bottom line is the Canucks have a pretty favorable schedule except for the fact that they have to play so many games in a short period of time, like we've talked about. Right. But the reality is that the last 4 games, 4 of the last 5 games for Vancouver against Calgary, and Calgary's last 4 games are against each other. So the Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames played in 4 of the last games, basically. If either of those can, and that's the issue. Like if they split those games, then the Montreal Canadiens are in pretty good shape. Well, but if one of those teams wins 4 of those games or takes like 6 or 8 of those points, it becomes a different ballgame.
I don't know how favorable the Vancouver schedule is because I'm just looking at it right now. Mm-hmm. They play Ottawa the next 2 games. Yes. Now they beat Ottawa, I think 2-1, with Ottawa warming up Artem Anisimov as the goaltender because Matt Murray got hurt and they had to play Marcus Hoberg. So
he played Hoberg and he was the backup for Hoberg.
So you've got AHL goaltending with a team that's one of the worst teams in the league, even though they have a lot of offensive talent and a lot of good young players.
So and they have dominated the Flames, but the Canucks have taken care of them except for that one game.
But then, after the 2 games against Ottawa, it goes Toronto.
Yep.
4 with Edmonton.
Yep.
2 with Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, and then 3 more with Calgary. It's not an easy schedule. It's not.
It's not a easy schedule, but it is a schedule that allows. I mean, they really do have their fate in their hands. They are in a situation where they can do something. If they can get hot, if they can go on a run, if Hope can stay hot, they have a chance. That's.
I want to say this. I just looked it up. Like on April 16th, there was another one of these must-win games between Montreal and Calgary, and Montreal won, and Jake Allen won that game. And all they have to do is win one more of these games, and there's really nothing you'll be able to say about it because if they get 6 points behind with a game in hand, it's over.
Yeah, no, they are in worse shape. Like we're talking about, this is a big game tonight, but they're in worse shape than the Rangers if they lose tonight. That's
the Rangers are not in great shape.
The Rangers are 4 points back. They'll be 6 points back.
Now the funny thing is that who holds the Montreal Canadiens' fate in their hands are their good friends from Toronto. Because Toronto has 8 games left, 4 of them against the Habs. Now, they play Calgary tonight. They play Toronto 4 times. They play Winnipeg. I'm just looking here. Come on. Of course.
Your microphone just got nuts, Mike. It's like really fuzzy.
Is it good now?
Fuzzy.
Go talk again? No, maybe unplug your USB and plug it in or something like that for a second. You don't have to just unplug your microphone for a second.
Okay, hold on.
But you're right. No, I mean, there's a lot of, and I went through this yesterday in like ridiculous detail in my blog about this whole thing. But there's no question that the Canadiens, the Canadiens have to, and the Maple Leafs, that's the big. I mean, the Canadiens have played the Maple Leafs tough, but the Maple Leafs have won the series so far. So as it continues on, it's really, I mean, Calgary has to take care of Ottawa, which they haven't been able to do for some reason. Calgary's been having just troubles against Ottawa, so that's been the big issue. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, how's it sound now?
Much better.
All right. Now Calgary's lost Noah Hannafin for the year.
Yep.
Winnipeg's lost Nikolai Ehlers for the year.
Yep.
There's a
The
battle
year or for the playoffs year?
for the regular season.
Okay.
So he'll probably play in game one, like Zach Hyman will play in game one, like Zach Bogosian will play in game one.
Right.
But I mean, I'm just saying, like these, especially these schedules with Vancouver, where they've got 15 games left in like.
Yeah, they've got 15 games left. It's insane. It's an insane stretch. But I mean, the only thing they've got going for it is there is the moment. And I talked to somebody out there, and there is that the adrenaline of a playoff race that they're in. That that's something that they see. They can taste the playoffs. And at the end of the day, if they can get there, it's going to be really hard. But they have the ability to get there. I mean,
I'm just going to read you again. This is where the NHL math is the only reason that it can have you talking like the Rangers are close. In the last 10, the Rangers are 7-2-1, and the Bruins are 6-4. The Bruins can keep playing 6-4 hockey, or even 5-5 hockey, and it won't matter what the Rangers do.
Right? No, 5-5 will matter because if the Rangers are playing 7-3 and 5-5, the gap is closed. It's a dead heat. So I mean, think about it.
Win those games though.
Oh, it depends. No, it depends how they lose the games. Actually, it depends. Yeah. I mean, the point, the situation is, in the points you're getting for losses. But if you always get 2 points for a win. So at the end of the day, it's really kind of how they lose the games.
But okay, this is the last head-to-head meeting with Montreal and Calgary tonight.
Right.
Okay, so after tonight, Montreal will have 9 games remaining.
Yep.
Can either be 2 points or 6 points ahead.
Yep. I have this whole thing. Yep. I'll show you. I being on my thing yesterday. It's just insane. I mean, I went through this whole thing. So Montreal, here you are. Montreal right now. Here's what their current race looks like. Montreal's, this wasn't changed yesterday because there were no games yesterday. So 49 points, with 46 games played for Montreal, 44 with 47 and 47 for Calgary, 41 and 41 for Vancouver. Now, 11 days ago, though, okay, Montreal, the projections. This is how the projections 11 days ago were that the Canadians would finish like 6 points ahead of the Flames and 7 points ahead of Vancouver. Now the projections, based on what's happened recently, the Canadians finished 3 points ahead of Vancouver and 4 points ahead of Calgary. So that's in 11 days. So that's with everything that's happened. It's only closed by a few points, like we've talked about. It is really hard to close ground, no question about it. But it has closed. And because in those 11 days, Montreal went 2-5, Calgary went 3-2, and Vancouver went 3-1. So the projected points were that Calgary played a bunch of teams they're supposed to beat, which is one of them being Montreal. So it doesn't change that much. But at the end of all this, Montreal, I figured out Montreal's basic point total will probably be around 58 points. So that's where these teams have to get to. So figure out where they have to go, what Calgary and Vancouver have to do to get to 58 points, and you have sort of your situation. And it's not easy for either of them to get to 58 points. It's really not an easy battle, but it is possible. So that's where you have to look at it.
Why aren't we talking about the one team that's sitting on the outside looking in that is most likely to swap spots, and that's the Dallas Stars?
No, we know absolutely, and they are they
most likely to do it.
I know. I mean, they've got 2 games at hand and are 2 points back. I mean, there's no question the Stars have a really good shot at this. The reason we're talking about these other things is because you guys don't think any of these teams have a chance at all. That's why we're talking about it. We all agree that Dallas is there.
You would rather spend time on the what isn't going.
No, I'd rather prove to you that there's still races in 2 other divisions, because there are. There just are. There are, but I agree with Dallas. Yes, definitely. I mean, Dallas is and there's other things we're not talking about too, like the Minnesota Wild have won 7 games in a row. I mean, there's certain
Minnesota
things,
looks great.
I mean, they are phenomenal. They're kind of the best team that no one talks about in the NHL. Like the Wild are.
I still don't buy them in as the best team that no one talks about.
Okay.
I mean, if they play the Avalanche, they're going to lose. They could go around. I mean, they could even lose to the St. Louis Blues if they play them in the playoffs. Like, I can't. I like the season that they're having.
Yeah.
Against a powerhouse team, though, or a team that has a lot of experience that has won, I'm a little worried about them still.
Yeah. I mean, and you should. I mean, that's a really hard.
It is.
Divisional playoffs are going to be crazy. I mean, we knew that the top 4 teams in that division are all teams that could go. I mean, 3 of the 4 teams could easily run to the Stanley Cup final, and maybe even Minnesota. So I agree. I mean, I mean, we're seeing basically what we're seeing now is the Wild have been streaky twice. They won like 11 in a row at one point. They won 7 in a row now, but they have had, because they're not, they're where they are. They obviously have had streaks where they haven't been playing well either. So they're a young team that's showing, both sides of things. But when they're good, and they have a superstar finally on their team.
It looks like Tyler Seguin's skating, so they might get him back with 3 or 4 games left. They might.
Oh, it's going to be a race. I mean, that is going to be a hell of a race between those two teams. It really is, and I'm looking forward to it right down the stretch. I think some of the rivalries you're seeing in the South are really fun. Like the Dallas-Nashville rivalry. That's a fun rivalry to see that we haven't seen that much of.
Yeah.
It's good.
Let me ask you this: your confidence level. If Florida plays Carolina in the playoffs, what is your confidence level that Carolina wins? Mine's not very good.
That Carolina wins? Oh, I think Carolina wins.
No, Carolina loses. I think Florida will beat them in the playoffs.
I don't think so. I think Carolina will beat them.
I think Carolina is going to win that division because they have 2 games in hand on Florida and 1 game in hand on Tampa, and they're 2 points up on Tampa and 1 point up on Florida. So if they go say 6-3 or 5-4, they're going to win that division. And then, like I said,
I mean, just from watching, I've watched I think every Carolina-Florida Panthers game this year, and the way they match up, Carolina just dominates them. And it's a very strange.
The last game, Florida came back and won.
But they came back and won, which was impressive. But that was the first time all year, and that's after 6 losses, I think, or something.
But you never know when the worm's going to turn, though. That's my point.
That's true, and the playoffs are a different animal.
But I do think that Dallas can beat them if Dallas catches Nashville. I think Dallas can beat Carolina. I
do too. If they have Seguin playing even at 50%, they might be able to beat them.
Dallas is definitely a battle for Carolina. I agree. A better battle than Nashville is. I agree with that. Nashville has not played Carolina.
And then you could potentially have a rematch of the Stanley Cup final in the second round.
Yeah, you could. I think Tampa, Florida would be a war and a half. I think it would be like a lot like the Columbus Tampa series.
I wouldn't give Florida a great chance, though. I wouldn't.
I would say it's about the same as I would give Columbus like last year in the first round. It's a battle and a half, but at the end of the day, I think Tampa finds a way.
Now the interesting thing is coming out of Leafs practice this morning is Frederik Andersen practicing for the first time since March the 19th, and the indications are that if he doesn't re-injure himself, that he could get into a regular season game or 2 before the end of the season, which then gives Sheldon Keefe a very interesting decision to make. Does he go with, whatever percent Freddie is right now or Jack Campbell? And I would think that they would probably lean toward Campbell, but if Andersen plays well, then they probably go with Andersen.
You got to give Andersen some starts if you can.
That's what I'm saying. At least 1 to 2 starts, and it
really doesn't matter what you're going to be in. You have a wrapped up first place, so it's like I think that at this point you just have to do what you can. Although the issue there is financially, how are they going to pull Andersen in? That's like the other thing too.
By putting Zach Hyman and Bogosian on long-term injury.
Yeah. They're actually hurt.
They can do. They either do.
I heard the NHL is really getting pissed off about this too. I read something about this the other day, and I talked to somebody at the NHL. They think this LTIR has been abused this year.
It has. There's no
question. But what option do these teams have when the cap stops at 81.5?
The option is don't spend above the cap. That's the option. That's what the NHL tell you. I mean, that's like
dream on.
I mean, so no. I mean, the LTIR is being used to circumvent the cap. No 2 ways about it, right? So like the NHL used to have NHL used to so crazy hard about cap circumvention, and now that they're really letting everything slide. Honestly, it's like the stuff that you didn't used to let happen was amazing. Like when they first had the salary cap.
Yeah, but
now they might as well keep Andersen on LTIR if they have to.
The NHL has become the NBA with 3-way trades, and that's going to continue as long as the cap stays 81.5. There are going to be trades where teams are going to be the middleman to retain salary. It started last year. It blew up this year. It's going to continue to happen until the cap goes up. You can't prevent a team. I mean, okay, are they technically under the cap? Yes. Are they really under the cap? No, but try to prevent it.
You know what? I'm looking at all these things online about Columbus, and I don't know what to believe anymore other than they're in a lot of trouble. And I think the smartest player Columbus had this year was Mikko Koivu retiring, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a mess there.
Well,
no, they are definitely. They have a lot. They have a lot of work to do.
Well,
and I don't buy into them selling off guys, though. I don't think that's.
Well, I mean,
I don't either, but you never know.
Well, okay, it might be a reality, and this is again what we've been saying for 2 or 3 years. Nobody apparently wants to stay in Columbus, unfortunately, because it's a good hockey market. I think Yarmo has done as good a job as he possibly can to keep the pieces in place. But if the reality is that Zach Werenski in 2 years is going to walk, that Seth Jones after next year is going to walk, that Max Domi has been a complete and utter bust, which he has, and Patrick Laine doesn't want to stay there, which you've said that, and everybody else has said that. Then what other option do they have?
Yeah, they're running out of, other than whoever they get in trade, that's going to be their team.
Yeah.
Apparently, the only guy who wants to stay in Columbus is Nick Foligno.
Right.
I have heard very much that Seth Jones is okay staying in Columbus, but I don't know whether. I mean, I don't know about Werenski. I honestly don't know that one, but
He
I've
might
heard
be okay staying there, but he also is going to want his money, and that's going to.
But he's going to get his money. Like, I mean, they're going to have to pay.
They never pay anybody top of the last time they paid somebody top of the market was Rick Nash.
Yeah.
Well, that was the last time they had somebody at Seth Jones level.
Look, we want Pierre-Luc Dubois wanted to be paid probably where, like, say, Ryan Johansson was being paid, which is $8 million a year. Instead he signs the 2-year bridge for in the fives. Right. The only reason he did that is because he didn't want to hold out, and he knew that was a contract that could get easily moved. I mean, that's the thing. Okay, yeah, they'll pay Seth Jones. Okay, they'll pay him, but then they won't pay anybody else, and he'll be alone on that team. And that's the thing. You've got to spend to win, and they won't spend.
Well, you have to spend, but you also have to draft really well, and they drafted pretty well. The issue with them is they do stay competitive because they draft really well. So at this point, they still have a lot of young guys on rookie contracts, and that's going to change.
Here's the news flash. Pierre-Luc Dubois has more points for Winnipeg than Laine has for Columbus.
And Pierre-Luc Dubois has not had a lot of success in Winnipeg. He's struggled.
No, but he still has.
I watched one game the other night, Laine against the Maple Leafs, where Laine looked good, and that's the first time I've seen him actually look half. No, it wasn't against Maple Leafs. Sorry, it was in Blue Jackets. Who's he playing against? We watched the Blue Jackets game the other night where Laine looked.
It was a game where he looked good about a week ago.
It was like one game, and he had like an assist. He had scored a goal.
I saw that game too. He did look good in that game.
But that was no, you know what that was? That was against Florida. That was the Spencer Knight game. In that game, he looked really good. Against Spencer Knight, Laine had a pretty good game. That was the game.
They're right now. I mean, they're not going to get both defensemen signed, right? So one of them is going to go, and they're not going to keep Laine, so he is going to go. So right now, they're going to be in the midst of having to make 2 big trades. And honestly, unless they absolutely fuel their roster with that, they're rebuilding. They're going to have.
Well, like I said before, this is the Flyers' plan, and maybe it works out for them. That the Flyers' plan was that they didn't think hard for these guys because they think they'll have a chance to go hard after Seth Jones. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know, but that was their thinking. Why they didn't go after Ekholm or anybody else.
If the Flyers go hard after Seth Jones, they're going to spend so many assets to do it that you have to start questioning whether it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's Columbus's only hope, right?
You don't need the spot. You need that spot desperately, but the problem is then you have 2 number ones with him and Provorov, and that's not necessarily an ideal situation because you're now giving away so many assets for Seth Jones. That's the issue.
Would you trade Provorov for him?
No.
I would.
Because I'll tell you why I wouldn't. Provorov will never be what Seth Jones is offensively, but he can give you enough offense with the great defense he has, and they both play around the same minutes. Sometimes Provorov will play a few more minutes, like 30 seconds more a shift, whatever. I'll take Provorov because he will never make the money Seth Jones does either.
Right. Columbus will do it in 2 seconds because Provorov's locked up for 4 more years, 5 more years. Oh,
and I think Seth Jones is a significantly better defenseman and scoring defenseman than Provorov is. I mean,
scoring defenseman, no question. I don't think he's significantly better on the defensive side of it. I don't.
Yeah, I mean that.
You see, okay, that's a mega deal, but in a way, that's change for change's sake. Yeah, that's okay because I think Seth Jones is better, but I don't think significantly better. That it makes up the difference for the fact that they don't have a number 2 defenseman to complement whoever the number 1 is. They have to add somebody.
Right,
No, you do. I mean,
that trade, you're still missing the number 2.
You still have to make that deal, but the idea is, who do you want? Seth Jones or Provorov as your number 1? That's like really if it comes down to you still have to get your number 2.
Provorov because I don't want to give up the assets to get Seth Jones.
Provorov.
But if you're giving up Provorov for Seth Jones,
it won't be 1 for 1. It won't be one for one.
This is the thing.
But there's not that much more you have to do. You can probably get a first-round draft pick in Provorov. You might be able to get Seth Jones.
So now I've given up another first. No, I'm not doing
Provorov is a number 1 defenseman making $6 million a year, and if you trade for Seth Jones, he's a number 1 defenseman making $9 million a year.
Right.
That's the difference. See, do I think that Seth Jones is $3 million better than Provorov? No. He's not. He's good. He's great. I think he's on the U.S. Olympic team if they go to Beijing. Provorov's on the Russian team if they go to Beijing.
Yeah, no, they're both great defensemen.
But
great defensemen, but Seth Jones brings more to your team.
Someone asked me, would the Flyers now try and trade for Shea Weber? And the answer is no. Shea Weber's not going to go anywhere anyhow. He likes it where he is. But the idea is this. I think Flyers fans have to get out of their head the idea of getting another Chris Pronger. It's not going to happen. You have to get somebody more like Matt Dumba who could just play the second spot and you not trade every last asset you have to do it, because you could already see the talent gap between what's in Lehigh and what's playing on the NHL roster. There's a couple of year gap there for guys to come around, and that's where your team is going to start to sink in the mud.
I'll give you 2 scenarios that Chuck Fletcher should explore. One is the Dumba situation. Not either Minnesota trades him before expansion or Seattle selects him and then he trades with Ron Francis to get him from Seattle for young players. That's one scenario. The other scenario is Dougie Hamilton in free agency. But that will cost you.
It's still going to cost you $8 million.
It's going to cost you $8 million a year.
Yeah, they'll be in on that though.
They can't be in on it. Where's the money coming from?
If they trade Voracek?
They will have to do well. Can they buy out Voracek? We talked about that before, right?
No, the buyout's awful.
The buyout's awful. At least in year 2, it's more than the cap hit. It's more than 8.
In year 1, it's not so bad. So what you have to see is who's coming off this year. You know, like what's coming. I haven't looked at it, but if they have the extra money next year.
Yeah, they save about $3.5 to $4 million with the buyout this year, but it lasts I think 6 years, and it goes up to like $8.8 million in the second year. So
it's no better than the Eagles dumping Carson Wentz the way they did. They're still getting killed on the cap. The Flyers may push it a year, but they're going to get killed on the cap anyhow.
Yeah. No, they're going to get killed on the cap. No question about it. There's no way around that.
Unless you're winning the cup that year, that you're going to do this. It's not worth doing it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, we'll see. We'll get into that later, but we're out of time, folks. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. And some big games tonight. We'll be back again tomorrow to talk about how much closer the Rangers are. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.